Now, Democratic presidential candidate Senator Kamala Harris of California speaks to voters at a campaign house party in Gilford, New Hampshire. This is just under an hour.
Should I turn this off? Hi everyone, it's on. There we go. That's on. Hi everyone. Oh, it's great to be in the Lakes region, and thank you all, and Lisa and Gary and the whole family. Thank you for opening your home in this outdoor concert area. But thank you. This is very kind of you, and I know it takes a lot of work to do this. So thank you very much. If we can please hear it for Lisa and Gary and the whole family. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all on a gorgeous Sunday afternoon. There are many things you could be doing with your time. I thank you for being here. I really do. And I know we're all here for one reason, for sure. Well, and also we're here because we love our country. We're here because we love our country. So thank you all. I really, really, really do mean that. And I'll tell you just to get started, I fully intend to win this election. I really do. I do. And that will obviously be a measure and a metric of our success. But the other one that is equally important to me is that at the end of this process that we are relevant. And one of the best ways to ensure that, especially at this phase of the campaign, is for me to be able to listen as much, if not more, than I talk. And so that's part of why I'm here. And so we'll take some questions and have a conversation after I share with you a few of my thoughts. But again, I want to thank you for being here. New Hampshire is such an incredible and important state, and I really do appreciate and value your consideration. So let's get started. Let's get started. So, I think that we all know this is an inflection moment in the history of our country. This is a moment in time that is requiring us each as individuals and collectively to look in a mirror and ask a question. That question being, who are we? And I think we all know part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. And so this is a moment in time then that we must fight for the best of who we are, and fight we will. And fights for us in terms of fighting for the best of who we are, that's not new. It's not new for us. I think about it in the context of the family in which I was raised. My parents met when they were graduate students at the University of California, Berkeley in the 1960s, when they were active in the civil rights movement. And so my sister and I, we joke that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting about this thing called justice. And of course, of the many heroes of that civil rights movement, there were the lawyers, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston, Constance Baker Motley, these individuals who understood the skill of the profession of law to translate the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country, and to do the work that we know must constantly be done, of reminding folks of that great promise we articulated in 1776, that we are all and should be treated as equals. And in fact, that's why I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And at a young age, I decided that. And then I went to Howard University and then went back home to California for law school and ended up right out of law school joining an office that Earl Warren helped build, the Alameda County DA's office. And of course, the symmetry for that is, of course, if Earl Warren in that unanimous court had not decided Brown v. Board of Education, I wouldn't be standing here right now. So fight is not new for us. Fighting for the ideals of our country, fighting for the promise of our country, not new to us. And so I think about it in that context, that where we are today. I think about it through that lens. And I'll also tell you about, a little bit more about the way I was raised. I was raised, my sister and I, by a mother who was all of 5 feet tall, but she was ferocious. She was intense. She was a power, all 5 feet of her. And our mother raised us with an understanding and a really very profound belief that the measure for any of us will be based on what we do for others and how we serve and how we lift others up. Our mother was the kind of parent who, you know, she would say to me many times, Kamala, you may be the first to do many things, but make sure you're not the last. My mother would say to us, you know, don't you let anyone tell you who you are. You tell them who you are. And that's how I was raised. Yeah, my mother was also the kind of parent who, if you ever came home complaining about something, our mother would look at you, perhaps with one hand on her hip, and with a very straight face, she would look at you and she'd say, well, what are you going to do about it? So I decided to run for president of the United States. There you go. There you go. So let's talk about the current occupant of the White House for a moment, if you will indulge me. Yeah, but we have to. We have to. We have to put all this in context, the reason all you guys are here. So let's put it in context. Let's talk about this for a minute. So the guy runs on a platform that is about make America great again. So of course that begs a question, great for whom? And it also requires us, yes, involvement is good here. But make America great again. It also requires us to ask, okay, so great again. You mean going back before the Civil Rights Act? Going back before the Voting Rights Act? The Fair Housing Act? Roe v. Wade? Well, we're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. And here's the other thing. Then the guy comes in office. On all of these promises about how he was going to take care of working people, how he was going to take care of farmers, how he was going to take care of auto workers. And then what did he do? He does policy by tweet based on ego. He puts in place a so-called trade policy by tweet, which ends up resulting in the fact that farmers across our country may be looking at bankruptcy before the end of the year. We're told as many as 700,000 auto workers in our country may be out of a job by the end of the year. The American family, on a daily basis, because of that so-called trade policy, which I called the Trump trade tax, American families are now today spending $1.4 billion more a month on everything from shampoo to washing machines. This is an individual who has betrayed people.
I never lost audio. It could be the live view, but I never.
Who said he'd do one thing and then has done quite another.
It's a mult feed.
And so here's what I say about that.
Justin's trying to work on
the
it.
task before us and the fight before us includes the requirement that we successfully prosecute the case against 4 more years. And I'd say that a prosecutor should do the job. So I'll tell you, I have, in my career, personally prosecuted the big banks of the United States who preyed on homeowners, causing one of the greatest economic upheavals we've seen in generations with that foreclosure crisis. I have taken on pharmaceutical companies who preyed on seniors, selling lies and misinformation. I have prosecuted big oil that was in the business of polluting the water that we need to drink. I have taken on and prosecuted transnational criminal organizations that preyed on women and children. I know predators, and we have a predator living in the White House. He has predatory instincts and a predatory nature. Because here's the thing about predators. Here's the secret about predators. They prey on the vulnerable. They prey on the weak, on those they perceive to be weak. They prey on those who are in need of help, those who are often desperate for help. And the other thing about predators, they're cowards. They're cowards. So let's take this on, and in so doing, because we will be successful, let us also do it with the spirit of understanding. It is time to turn the page and write the next chapter in our collective history. Let's turn the page. Let's write that next chapter. And let's write that next chapter based on the America we believe in. The America we believe in. An America where, unlike today, where almost half of American families are a $400 unexpected expense away from complete upheaval. An America where today, in 99% of our counties, if you're a minimum wage worker working full-time, you cannot afford rent for a one-bedroom apartment. In an America where last year 12 million people took out a loan of on average $400 from the payday lender at an interest rate of often in excess of 300%, let's fight for the America we believe in. And in so doing, when we get elected, change that tax code so that for families that are making, as I am proposing, families that are making less than $100,000 a year, they'll receive a tax credit of up to $6,000 a year that they can take home at up to $500 a month, which will represent all the difference between them being able to get through the end of the month with dignity or not. And I have to tell you guys, you know, when we rolled out this plan, as you can imagine, there were a bunch of folks who then said, well, how are you going to pay for that? That's what I heard. Well, I will tell you how we're going to pay for that. On day one, we're going to repeal that tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations in our country. That's how we're going to pay for it. Because in our America, no one should have to work more than one job to have a roof over their head and food on the table. That's the America we believe in. Let's fight for the America we believe in, where teachers are paid their value. So, I've been traveling our country. I cannot tell you the number of teachers I've met that are working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. In fact, this last week I met a woman who's working 4 jobs. 94% of the teachers in our public schools are coming out of their own pocket to help pay for school supplies. Teachers on average in America make 11% less than similarly educated professionals. And here's the thing. There are 2 groups of people raising our children. Parents, often with the assistance of grandparents and aunties and uncles, and our teachers, but we are not paying them their value. And you know, this is personal to me. I'll tell you, my first grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, God rest her soul, she attended my law school graduation. Yeah, but you know what? Many of us have a similar, of some teacher along the way who convinced us we were special. We weren't particularly special. But they told us we were, and we believed them. Which put us on this path to together being here, determining who might be the next president of the United States. So in the America we believe in the America I believe in, we will make the first federal investment in closing the teacher pay gap. Here in New Hampshire and nationally, that pay gap is $13,500 a year. Let's be clear about that. $13,500 a year in most places in our country is a year's worth of mortgage payments. $13,500 a year, that's a year's worth of grocery bills. $13,500 a year means putting a significant dent in student loan debt, which is one of the greatest barriers to our students coming out and joining a profession for which they have a passion. Let's fight for the America we believe in. Let's fight for the America we believe in. An America where none of our children have to go to school and go through a drill, where they're taught about how they should go hide in a corner or in a closet in the event that there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. Because in America today, we have children who every day are going through this and are terrified about what this all might mean. And here's the thing, when they come home from school, they're sitting at the family dinner table, elementary, middle, high school students asking their parents, why, Mommy and Daddy, did we have to go through that drill? To which, of course, the response is, because there are supposed leaders in Washington, D.C. who have failed to have the courage to reject a false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. Because there are supposed leaders in Washington, D.C. who have failed to have the courage to agree, fine if you want to go hunting, but we need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, including universal background checks and renewal of the assault weapons ban. So in the America we believe in the America I believe in, after this election, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together on this issue and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, I am prepared to take executive action by, one, putting in place what will be the most comprehensive background check requirement we've had, two, to require the ATF to take the licenses of gun dealers who are violating the law. And you guys should know, 90% of the guns associated with crime are sold by just 5% of the dealers. So as far as I'm concerned, the ATF is doing a fine enough job on the A and the T, but we need to do a little better on that F. And then finally, by executive order, I'm prepared to put in place a ban on the importation of assault weapons into our country. But to put a fine point on these two and so many other policies, I'll tell you, in my career, and I was two-term attorney general in my state of 40 million people. I was a district attorney, elected twice. In all of my career, including the United States Senate, I have always challenged our team to tell me on any issue how it affects a child. Because I think there's so much you can tell about the relevance, the significance, and the impact of any policy if you think about how it will impact a child. And I come from a place of strongly believing that you should judge a society based on how it treats its children. So let's talk about the America we believe in. In the America we believe in, we acknowledge that climate change is real, and it represents an existential threat to us as a species. And in the America we believe in, we will have a Green New Deal, and we will immediately re-enter the Paris Agreement. As as opposed to what we see now, which is a fellow in the White House who is pushing science fiction instead of science fact to our collective peril. And I'll tell you guys, so my mother, who I talked with you about, my mother was a scientist. She was a breast cancer researcher. She had two goals in her life: to raise her two daughters and end breast cancer. In fact, she would take us to the lab with her after school and on weekends. Little known fact, my first job was cleaning pipettes. I was awful, and she fired me. That's why I became a lawyer. But the idea that on this issue that does represent an existential threat to us, that we would have such level of not only just denial, but really rejection of what should be the role of a leader, really points out one of the most urgent reasons why we need a new president of the United States. Let's talk about the America we believe in. In the America we believe in, women will be paid equally for equal work. So here's the thing. Does anybody know when the Equal Pay Act was passed? 1963. Yes! 1963, says the gentleman over here. 1963. Our country acknowledged by statute, by an act, that women were not being paid equally for equal work. Fast forward to the year of our Lord 2019, and women are paid 80 cents on average to the dollar. Black women 61 cents, Native American women 58 cents, Latinas 53 cents. Kind of done with the subject, right? Because it's no longer a debatable point, is there, the disparity? The issue really has become a very, very basic one. What are we going to do about it to pay people equally for equal work? So here is what I propose for the America we believe in. Instead of requiring that working woman to prove that she's not being paid equally to the fellow who's working in the cubicle next to her, we're going to shift the responsibility to the corporations to prove that they are paying people equally for equal work. We will require that they prove that they are paying people equally for equal work. And if you guys, I'm going to just turn it on again. In the America we believe in, microphones will work. Thank you. Okay. Nope. Okay. Okay, at this point I'm going to project. And then I'll let you guys figure this out, and the team will come and get these microphones. Will you do mind passing them? Okay, thank you so much. So, instead of requiring that woman to show that she's being paid equal for equal work, what we're going to do is shift the burden to the corporation to prove that they are actually paying women equally for equal work. And they will then have to post that information on their website. There we go. I think it's working. Oh, there's a whale here somewhere. Hello?
The C-SPAN guy came.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to let them all figure it out. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, the first night of the debate was like that. I know. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. And I hope you guys in the back can hear me. I'll try and project a little bit more. And so then also, not only will they have to post it on their website, but we're also going to require, because there's more, that for every 1% differential between what a woman is being paid and a man is being paid for equal work, there will have to be, because I believe in consequence and accountability, the corporation will be fined an equal percent based on their previous year's profits. That'll get their attention. Let's talk about an America we believe in. In America we believe in, children will not be separated from their parents at the border. And we will not allow it to be called border security when in fact what it is a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. And in the America we believe in, we will acknowledge that we are a nation of immigrants. Because here's the thing. Unless you are Native American, or your ancestors were kidnapped and brought over on a slave ship, your people are immigrants. So in the America we believe in, we will immediately renew DACA protections. And we will fight to pass comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway toward citizenship. Let's talk about the America we believe in. Hi, Katie. Hi. In the America we believe in, we will agree. Okay, is there another mic for me? Team, where's our team? Team, anybody from our team around?
We're working on it.
Okay, we're working on it. Come closer. I don't know that that's going to make a difference.
Here he comes.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, great. Hi. 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 Maybe I'll stay on this side. Okay, I'm just going to stand right here. So in the America we believe in, we will have a President of the United States who understands that we can no longer tolerate to have what we have been seeing in our history and recently, which is a full-on attack against a woman's access to her reproductive health care. So I've been traveling our country, and I will tell you, I have met a lot of folks who are rightly terrified about what these laws that are being passed mean. I was just a few weeks ago in Alabama, where, as many of you know, that state legislature passed a law that would criminalize and actually incarcerate a physician who assists with an abortion to up to 99 years in prison. Georgia, we expect, Missouri, we expect the same kind of thing to happen. And so here's the thing. We are not being alarmist when we say women will die. Women will die. And in particular, poor women and women of color. Those who do not have the ability, the financial ability or access to travel to places where abortion and access to reproductive health care are legal and physician assisted. Women will die. So as president, I am prepared to require that the Department of Justice, the United States Department of Justice, review the laws coming from any state that has a history of restricting a woman's access to reproductive health, to determine if that law is constitutional and comports with Roe v. Wade. And until it is determined that it is constitutional, it cannot go into effect. That's called pre-clearance. Because here's the thing. We will continue to fight this issue on the defensive. We will continue to support those folks who are doing work on the ground, legal aid, all the nonprofits that are helping those women. But we've also got to take this on the offensive. And as you can probably see with a number of my policies and perspectives, I believe we just need to take the stuff on the offensive and get some stuff done. In the America we believe in, we will have a President of the United States who appreciates that she is also the Commander-in-Chief and takes that job on responsibly, unlike the current occupant of the White House, who not only apparently has bone spurs, but is a supposed Commander-in-Chief, who on the subject of Russia's proven interference in the election of the President of the United States prefers to take the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of an American student who was tortured and later died, prefers to take the word of a North Korean dictator over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of a journalist who was assassinated, a journalist who has American credentials, prefers to take the word of a Saudi prince over the word of the American intelligence community. We need a new commander-in-chief. So let's turn the page. Let's turn the page and let's write the next chapter. And it is well within our power and our ability to do this. And I think about it in the context of many things, including the fact that when it comes to who we are strong as a people. We are strong as a people. And one of the greatest strengths about who we are as a nation, by our very nature, we are aspirational. We are a nation that was founded on noble ideals. The ideals that were present when we wrote the Constitution of the United States and all of its amendments, when we wrote the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and those words we spoke in 1776, that we are all equal and should be treated that way. By our nature, we are aspirational. We are also clear-eyed. We've not yet reached those ideals. But part of the strength of who we are is we always fight to get there. And so fight we will. And fight we must, knowing this is a fight that is born out of optimism. This is a fight that is born out of knowing and believing in what can be, unburdened by what has been. This is a fight that is not only for the soul of our country, this is a fight that is born out of love of country. And this, therefore, is a fight we will win. We will win. And we will be joyful in the way that we fight.
Thank you, everyone. I guess we're having some technical problems, so we're not going to do the questions.
Oh, no.
Do you want to do the questions? Okay. Okay.
If you guys can tolerate the buzz, we can tolerate this. We can do it.
So,
Yeah.
do you want to?
Yeah, you just kind of
Okay,
pick
yeah.
people.
Okay,
here.
Sign this up here, President Harris. Yeah. There you go. Have a sign up for me.
Right
Thank
over
you.
there.
The administrator in both Boston Public Schools and in Keene, New Hampshire, in the debate last week or whatever it was, you had a position on busing, and I'd like to hear where you stand after you know, not in the heat of the debate.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, of course, thank you. The question was, how do I feel about busing? That it came up during the debate, and where do I stand, and can we talk about it not in the heat of a debate? So, you know, I think you all know the context in which it came up, which is there was a discussion about former members of the United States Senate who were proven to be segregationists, who had a history and really pretty much lived their careers and their reputations off of that history of fighting against the integration of the races in our country. And their work included fighting against integration of our public schools. Back to Brown v. Board of Education. The reason that the United States Supreme Court, that the case of Brown v. Board of Education went that high, was because this was such a contested issue in our country. There were laws in place and leaders in place who fought for the segregation of the races as it relates to public education. This is part of the sad history of our country. We have a lot to be proud of, and then there is a lot that we should not be proud of, and this is one of those things. So it had to go to the United States Supreme Court. And then, I'll say this with a point of personal pride, a former Attorney General of California, Earl Warren, who went on to be the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, knowing how important the subject was, as really integral to a statement about who we are as a nation and our principles and ideals. You'll all remember that about part of the history of that case was Earl Warren said, this is a case that is so fundamental in terms of a reflection of who we are. It is critically important. It's a unanimous decision. So if you read the history behind the case, he pushed that there would be that unanimous decision, which there was, to integrate the schools of California, to integrate the schools of our country. Okay, fast forward to almost 20 years. I am a first grader in Berkeley, California public schools. 20 years. Now, this is Berkeley, California, right? It's not what you might imagine. People think of it as being a progressive place, right? In Berkeley, California, I was only part of the second class to integrate Berkeley schools. This is the reality of how all that played out in our nation. Which is, it didn't just, in 1954 it got decided, and then all of a sudden a key was on, the thing was unlocked. There had to be policies and pressure in place to actually fulfill the promise of Brown v. Board of Education to integrate the schools of our country. People were resisting it, violently resisting it. And we can all remember the images in particular from the South, violently resisting the desegregation of our schools. So what else had to happen? They had to be put in place then, mandatory busing. Berkeley was not one of the places, they did it voluntarily. But in places around our country, mandatory busing had to be put in place because there was such resistance, even violent resistance, to the integration of our schools. So on the subject of mandatory busing in our country and what was going on during that era and that place and time, yes, I believe that that was exactly what was necessary. One of my opponents in this race, still to this day, disagrees that that was necessary. I don't want to speak for him, but I do know he and I have a disagreement on that issue. And we're going to have to agree to disagree. When we talk about where we are today, because that's been part of the question that is being asked, there's no question, and I think the educators among us know that even today, we are seeing extreme segregation in our schools. And, there are a number of reasons for it, including, if we're going to have a candid conversation, that after Brown v. Board of Education and the integration, the enforced integration of schools, there were certain families that said, I don't want my kids to be educated with black kids. And people started pulling their kids out of the public schools. And you can kind of loosely track all the resources being pulled out of those schools. And so if you go into the public school system of many states in our country, you will see extreme segregation by race. Now, what we're seeing now is not a function of people in state houses and legislatures who are resisting integration. The reason is different. So for that reason, I say, mandatory busing is not what's going to deal with what we have right now. What we need to deal with right now is the fact of it, and so I have a number of ideas about how we need to do it. One is we just need to track it and keep the statistics about, we need to keep statistics about race. We need to look at what's going on around, gerrymandering on a number of issues, including who can live in what districts and what kind of school boards they get as a result of that. We need to look at what we need to do to encourage, from a federal government perspective, supporting public magnet schools, right? So there are a number of solutions to this, Busing may be one of them, but not the kind of mandatory busing that we saw then, because it's a different circumstance.
Senator, over here. How are you
That's how I
going to
think about
unite
it. Kamala.
this little girl right over there?
Oh, yes. Hi. What's your name?
My name is Ellie, and I'm 9 years old.
Ellie, hi. Wow, I love our young leaders.
Thank you.
What you got?
So, it is sad that kids just like me, but who just want to get away from the war zones that they are living in, want to go to the United States, but they get separated from their mother and father to be put in a cage. What are your thoughts on that?
I love our young leaders. I just do, because when I look at you, Ellie, I know our future is bright. I know our future is bright. Thank you. That takes a lot with this big crowd to stand up and speak like that in public with no mic. So thank you, Ellie. So you're right. You're absolutely right. And it's about so many things. It's about the fact that we should live our values to the world, right? So we as a country, we say that we prioritize humanitarian approaches to issues, but we've not seen evidence of that in the policies that are separating children from their parents. After the debate, we just talked about the debate, it was in Miami about a week and a half ago, I think it was. And the morning after, I, along with some other members of Congress, drove down to a place in Florida called Homestead. And in Homestead, Florida, there is a for-profit residential facility that is currently housing 2,700 children. For profit, right? So let's talk about what's the business model there. The business model there is that certain people are profiting off of the incarceration of other people, those people called children. So we get there, and I'm a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Homeland Security Committee, Budget Committee, and Judiciary Committee, with other members of the United States Congress. This is a facility that is a privately run facility, but paid with your tax dollars. They would not let us in. So then we just did not have we couldn't force them physically, right? And so, it is Trump, and it is what they're doing. Yeah, of course we need to take their money. On day one, I plan on shutting down all those private detention facilities. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to share with you what I saw. So I then walked down the road and climbed up a ladder to look over a fence to see what was going on inside. Since they wouldn't give us access, there are many ways to get there, right? And let me just tell you what I saw. I saw children, lined up single file by gender, being walked into barracks. By the way, I also met some of their parents on the other side of the fence. It's inhumane, to Ellie's point. It's inhumane, and it is wrong for that reason. And we have got to understand also, to your very point, Ellie, listen, as a basic matter, most people don't like to leave home. Just think about it. Let's just go basic for a moment. Most people don't like to leave home. The place where you grew up, the place where your cousins and your family lives, the place where you might worship and you went to high school, right? Most people don't like to leave home. So you have to sit back and ask, why are they here? And in particular with the unaccompanied children, what's that story? Well, part of that story is this. There's a mother and or a father who decided to pay a coyote, to pay a stranger, to transport their child from their home, their country of origin, transport them through the entire country of Mexico, facing unknown peril. Why would that parent do that? Because they know that if they let their child stay where they are, they face greater danger. But what does this administration and this person, this president do? Looks at them and then says, go back to where you came from. It is not reflective of human values. It is not reflective of American values. It is wrong and it must stop. So Ellie, thank you. And you speaking up today, you must know your words when you stood up on that chair and spoke like that in front of all of these folks, you just spoke for all of those kids. You just spoke for all of them. That's your leadership. That's the power of your voice. You always remember that. That's the power of your voice. Hi. Oh, okay. Oh, we're done?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Isn't she amazing? Our next president of the United States, Senator Kamala Harris. Thank you.